Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. It's April the 12th, and we're beginning our readings today in 1 Samuel chapter 24. Now, in this chapter, we have an interesting occurrence. David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi, and Saul and his men discover that David is there, so they go to find him. They go to search him out, and there was a cave, and Saul went in there to cover his feet. That's just biblical expression, which means that he went to go to the toilet. And David was inside the tent. It was inside the cave with his men, and David rose very quietly, and he cut off a corner of Saul's robe privately. And David's heart then smote him because he had cut off Saul's skirt. And he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch forth my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord." But when Saul went out of the cave, David arose afterwards, and he stood and cried after Saul and said, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth, and he bowed himself. And David said to Saul, "Wherefore you hearest, why do you listen to the words of men which say that David seeks to hurt you? Behold, this day thine eyes will now see how the Lord has delivered thee today into my hand in the cave. And some bid me to kill you, but my eyes spared you. I said, I will not put forth my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed. Moreover, my father, if you have a look at your robe, you will see the corner is cut off. And so may the Lord judge between you and me, and the Lord avenge of me, but my hand will not be against you. Therefore, the Lord judge between us, and I plead my cause before the Lord to deliver me out of your hand." And it came to pass, when David made an end of speaking these words to Saul, that Saul said, "It is thy voice, my son David." And Saul lifted up his voice and wept. That's my password for today, that Saul lifted up his voice and wept. And he said to David, "Thou art more righteous than I, for you have rewarded me good, whereas I have rewarded you evil." And so on. And so there was a reconciliation between Saul and David this day. And Saul said to him, he said, "Will you swear that you will not cut off my children forever?" And David agreed and said, "I will never do that to you." The next thing we discover in chapter 25 is that Samuel dies. He's very old now, and all Israel were gathered together and lamented and buried him in his house at Ramah. Now, another interesting thing occurs here. David arose and went to the wilderness of Paran, and there was a man in Manon whose possessions were in Carmel, and the man was very great. He had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. Now David had heard that Nabal was there, and he went to him, and he sent some men to Nabal to request that Nabal might give them some provisions. But Nabal replied, "Well, who is David, and who is the son of Jesse? There's lots of servants nowadays that leave their master. Shall I take my bread and water and flesh and that I've killed for my shearers and give it to men that I don't know where they've come from?" When David's young men turned and went their way and came and told him all these things, David said to his men, "Gird every man his sword." And they girded on every man his sword, and David also girded on his sword, and they went after David 400 men and 200 abode by the stuff. So we can see now this is quite a substantial army. And one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, "Behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good to us, and we weren't hurt, and we didn't miss anything. As long as they were conversant with them, they were like when we were in the fields." So Abigail made haste, and she took 200 loaves and 2 bottles of wine and 5 sheep ready dressed, and 5 measures of parched corn, and 100 clusters of grain, and 200 cakes of figs, and laid them on asses. And she sent them ahead of her to David, and she followed behind on an ass. And when she eventually came to David, she got off the ass and she fell on her face, and she gives this long speech. She says, "Let not my lord, I pray thee, regard this man of Belial, even Nabal, for as his name is, so he is. Nabal is his name, and folly is with him." And she gives this long speech, how that he's been a wicked man, but she's been a faithful woman, and she hopes that David will show mercy upon her. And David says to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, which has sent you to me to this day, and blessed be the advice, and blessed be thou which has kept me this day from coming to shed blood, from avenging myself with my own hand. For in very deed, as the Lord of Israel liveth, he has kept me back from hurting you, except that you came to meet me. Surely there has not been left unto Nabal by the morning any that is a man." So David received of her hand that which she brought him, and said to her, Go up in peace to thine house. I have hearkened to thy voice, and have accepted thy person." And Abigail came to Nabal, and Nabal that night was making a great feast, a feast like a king, and his heart was merry, and he was very drunk. And she told him nothing about it at all, about what had happened, until the morning. And it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, his wife told him all these things, and his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. We don't really know quite what happened here, but we read in the next verse, it says, "It came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died. And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and kept his servant from evil. For the Lord has returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head. And David sent and communed with Abigail, and he took her to him for wife. And when she came, she bowed to the earth, and she said, Behold, let thine handmaid be thy servant to wash the feet of the servants of the Lord." So it's a wonderful passage, great end. Abigail finally becomes David's wife. David had another wife, Ahinoam of Jezreel. They were both his wives. So there we are. What a wonderful passage. Look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.